Elevator Action Returns is the best Die Hard arcade game on the Sega Saturn, a listing that includes Die Hard Arcade and the Die Hard trilogy. Released in the arcades in 1995 by Taito, it also received a perfect home port on the Sega Saturn, which is what we'll be focusing on with this review. Returns follows a paramilitary group fighting against organized terrorists who have set up bombs all over the city in an attempt to overthrow the government and start a new world order. At least, that's the background story. The game has no cutscenes or real story going on when you play it, outside of maybe 2 or 3 points of antagonism from the villain showing up every now and again. You pick one of 3 characters: Cart Bradfield, Eddie Barrett, and Jad the Taff. And then you just gun down every single person, robot, or dog that you come across while going from red door to red door. The 3 characters do have actual differences and aren't just skins though. Returns operates on the same logic as another Taito arcade sequel, where Ninja Warriors and Ninja Warriors Again might as well have been different IP for all their differences. Eddie always strikes me as the standard character of the group. She has the best gun of the 3, the Berletta M92F. Look, it's not me that's calling it that, it's the game. She has the best standard attack in the game, since the gun is what you're using most of the time. Her movement speed is standard, and the damage she does with her jumping attacks is almost non-existent. I actually prefer playing as her despite of this though, since the gun is almost everything you need. She's got firebomb grenades, which stay behind longer than the other grenades in the game, but they're still kinda just useless. A long-lasting fire doesn't really do much in most situations where you'd want to throw a grenade in this game. Cart Bradfield has the weakest gun, something that actually becomes a pretty big problem in the late game, at least for me. The Glock 18 is a pea shooter, barely capable of taking down most enemies. In turn, his hand grenade clears entire floors in one go, easily one of the best grenades in the game, which is a bit weird of a strength to have considering how limited the things are to use, especially compared to the other forms of offense. But hey, he goes into doors backwards and that looks kinda cool, not like it serves any real purpose. In fact, the animation feels like it takes longer than the other characters, but you know, it's cool, so that's all that matters. Jad the Taff is a monster. He's got an alright handgun, the Desert Eagle. It's not as great as Eddie's, but not as useless as Cart's. His grenade, the Sensor Bomb, is a cluster bomb with a proximity charge. If nothing is near it, it just stays on the floor until something is actually in range. And that range is massive, easily the best grenade, especially during the later encounters in the game. He also has the ability to just run through people, giving Jad the ability to just chat stride his way through stages. It's really satisfying. The first stage of Return starts out making you believe you're just playing a more graphically advanced version of Elevator Action, and while it is cool what it ends up doing with that, I think this is what makes it a hard sell to a lot of people. The original Elevator Action, while not bad, is definitely a game that doesn't appeal to most people anymore. And the amount of clone tie-in games makes the IP look like a Crazy Castles kind of cash grab series. But Returns doesn't settle for being just another Elevator Action game. Early into the first stage, the typical tower you're descending down gets demolished by the leader of the terrorist group, shooting the building up from a helicopter on the outside. And from there, it just starts going off into its own thing instead, and that own thing is rad. Like the special animation you get when you get crushed by an elevator out of carelessness. The sprite work in Elevator Action Returns is great. It makes sense for an arcade original releasing in the mid-90s to have great graphics. It was a cutthroat industry for attention back in those days. People often dismiss arcade games as quarter munchers and whatnot, but a good arcade game should look fun to play. So you want to play it for yourself when you see someone else go through the game. It's what leads to the kind of spectacle that you get in the better arcade games, where there's little downtime and everything looks incredible and outrageously over the top. That effect you get when you grab a rocket launcher and clear an entire floor's worth of enemies with a single missile is one of the most satisfying things in the game, and it happens at least once per stage if you play well enough. You might wonder why I compared this game to Die Hard going in, but the game plays homage to it pretty often. Not just that, but the feeling of being trapped inside of a building with a bunch of terrorists making outrageous demands while being armed with nothing but a pistol, that's as Die Hard as it gets. More so than anything in Die Hard Arcade. What makes everything even better is that if the first stage is the original Die Hard, then the second stage, the airport, is Die Hard 2. And the clear screen of stage 3, with the helicopter hovering over an exploding rooftop, is exactly positioned like the poster for the first Die Hard movie from a different angle. I'd almost want to argue that the oil tanker at sea and the missile launching operations are based on Armageddon, but that's just one of those happy coincidences, as that movie wouldn't come out for another 3 years after this game. It's nice to think that they'd predicted Bruce Willis's career going in this direction though, but unfortunately, it's not a reference. What definitely is a reference though, are the hover machines in the sewers when you're going through stage 4. It's from my favorite Bruce Willis movie, Akira. Special attention should go to the music in Elevator Action Returns. It's a Zuntata soundtrack. If you don't know who Zuntata is, they did the music for a lot of Taito's music back in the late 80s to this day, often performing the music live with a proper band, just like the Sega Sound Team and Falcom JDK band. If you've never heard the work that they did on Ninja Warriors, look up the live version of Daddy Mulk on YouTube. You won't regret it. And if you really want a good time, their back catalog is on Spotify. Zuntata really adds to the atmosphere of the game, which has this sort of gritty, almost punk vibe going for it. The terrorist group and their recruitment almost has a grassroots sort of thing going on with the thugs in the early game, all surrounded with graffiti that cries out for the destruction of modern society, with phrases like "crush the old order" and "create a new society." Wait.
Crush the old order and create a new society!
The airport has some cool stuff going on where you enter an airplane that gets blown up halfway through it. It's all a really cool setup for what's essentially a pretty simple game, and there's nothing wrong with it being simple either. I beat this game 3 times for this review, once as each character, and that was on the back of playing the game on Twitch for a bit to show a fun extra thing before ending the stream. Do I recommend Elevator Action Returns? Hell yeah, it's a great game. Only takes about 20 to 40 minutes to play through depending on how well you do. The arcade original runs perfectly fine on MAME, and that was how I originally played it. The Saturn version is an arcade perfect port and emulates no issue on Metnafen. It does lock you to playing the game with 3 credits compared to the MAME version, letting you use how many credits you want or need, but that isn't an issue. The game isn't especially punishing or hard. And even if you do have to restart, it's a 20-minute game at most, so there's no real time investment you've lost if you do go game over. So let's talk about something else that's hard. I asked a hard question on Patreon and Discord for this video's poll. Or well, I say hard, it's Die Hard. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? The result is about what you'd expect, really. You guys are all good folks, but the people who voted no are on a list right now. One person voted that all 3 originals are a Christmas movie, and I like that person. So yeah, this was a short video on a game that I like. The next game involves pirates, and it's still by Sega. It'll take a bit longer to make than this one, so I figured I'd do a quick short video in between this and the other Sega RPG game instead of doing 2 consecutively. As always, this video was brought to you by people supporting me on Patreon. If you would like to become one of the names that you see scrolling on the screen right now, head over to patreon.com/AboveUp and I will, see ya.